Over on.
Hello and welcome to the Knock On KCLR and scoreline.ie's rugby podcast. We're joined again this week by Johnny Tobin and Chris Pim. Lads, how are you?
Good, yeah. All good.
Thanks.
Yeah, we're all a bit tired and worse for wear. This heat has taken it out of us, I think. There we are talking about, going to different countries. The Lions are in South Africa, high altitude, heat and everything. Can you imagine playing rugby in 28, 29, 30 degree heat in that weather? Pretty serious stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, not great now. Wouldn't be great. But look, they're highly trained professional athletes. They get themselves adjusted and stuff, and they'll be grand. They're not at altitude now anyway, that they're back down in Cape Town.
Yeah.
At least that's a help, that's for sure.
I was more worried about Chris. If we had to go out and try and play a game and that. Serious stuff. Takes a lot of effort to do a walk, I think. Lads, I suppose we're going to talk about the Lions' first test, team named test, of course, taking place at 5 o'clock Irish time on Saturday. And as Chris was saying there, it's at sea level in Cape Town. So, and the 3 tests are going to be held there as well, we were told during the week. Quick look back at the game last week against the Stormers. Chris, did we learn anything from that? It was a bit of an audition, putting yourself in the shop window, something for Gatland to have a look at a few players and see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think he took any of it, to be quite honest, into consideration. I mean, I'm not sure. I would have thought they were learning a lot more from the A game, or whatever that game was called, but the South Africa A game, where it was a lot closer. It was a bit more of a contest. And I thought that a few guys had put their hand up in that game, because it would have had more influence on what a test team might look like. And certainly, I suppose my biggest surprise was that Mako Vunipola didn't make it, because the scrum was so good. Well, not so good, but it definitely had an edge in that South African game. And he's not even in the 23. So slightly strange. And then when you look at the makeup of the 2 front rows that are starting, it's kind of like neither side is afraid. Both sides are afraid to show their hand, because you would look like the stronger front rows are on the bench, particularly in South Africa's case. So they obviously have a plan. And then you look at the bench from the Lions' point of view, and you've got your 2 most experienced game controlling halfbacks on the bench. So are the Lions hoping to go out and dominate the first 60 and then bring on their experienced players to close out the game? I don't know. You can never read Warren Gatland and what he's really thinking, but you could say the same about Rozzy as well. So I think there's a lot of mind games going on there, but certainly I didn't get too many of the starting test side on my team sheet, that's for sure.
Johnny, what do you make of the team selection, I suppose, and versus that last game that we thought was going to be an audition?
Yeah, it's funny. I'd agree with Chris there. I think Mako Vunipola definitely should have been, without a doubt, in the Test 23 anyway. But look, it's strange, and like what Chris said, nobody wants to show their hand too early. They've had massive matches up to it, so there's nothing really you can judge off it. So is the first test going to be a warm-up game, or is it going to be a test? I don't know. But look, as far as I'm concerned, the team is strong. Cowan and Cowan are in there. They had a good performance the last day against the Stormers. Obviously, Alan Jones is back, so he must have done enough in the 25, 27 minutes he got. The 2 big surprises for me is no Mako Vunipola and Courtney Law starting at 6. They're big surprises for me. I honestly thought Byrne had done enough to get a test start at 6. I don't know. Like what Chris said, you can't read Warren Gatland, so what is going on? Josh Adams is the most informed winger in the whole tournament and not even in a squad either. So, hard to know. It's hard to read it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Van der Merwe, that was an absolute bolter there. I don't think anybody saw that coming. That you would have had the 2 Welsh lads, probably both would have been ahead of Van der Merwe. But I don't know, maybe showing something in training that we don't see.
Yeah.
Clearly, Townsend rates him, so they must have a plan of some sort, but not one that they've exposed to us just yet. So yeah, look, slightly strange certainly there as well. And I think we were talking last week about there was no possibility of Elliot Daly starting because he pretty much played every minute of every game so far, and there he is starting at 13. So you couldn't see that one coming either.
No, you thought he would get minutes just to keep him happy, kind of a thing. He played him all the way through, and he wasn't going to play him in a test, like, so strange. But he's earned it. In fairness, he's definitely earned it.
No, he's done well, and he does bring that little bit of variety, I suppose, in the 13 channel. But I mean, consider he hasn't even played there for about 4 years in England. He's been at fullback 90% of the time. You know, it is slightly strange, but yeah, look, it is what it is. So
yeah, and you have to say Jack Cowan's a bit of a bolter as well. He was for the squad, and there he is starting a test over the experience of Faletau as well. You know, I wouldn't have seen that one coming, to be honest.
Yeah. So, and I mean, the other thing as well is just regards Conan is that because of Byrne, he's now essentially covering the second row as well, because they didn't pick Henderson. There was some chat of them going with a 6-2, but they didn't. And so that leaves Byrne under a lot of pressure as a small man against a relatively small man next to the South Africans. If he ends up in the second row after 5 minutes with maybe Marrow or somebody gone off, then we look very small next to the South Africans at that stage, and then they bring on what looks to me like their senior front row for the second half, and suddenly it's men against boys. So it's there's a lot of strange ones there. Not really sure how to get my head around it, but yeah, look, we've been spent the last 20 years doubting Gatland, and 9 times out of 10 he comes up trumps. So I'll give him the benefit of that one until Saturday evening at 7 o'clock.
Bit of a tough one for Conor Murray, coming in, being made captaincy gone. Now you're on the bench for the first test. Ali Price is in there ahead of him. It's a tough one, isn't it, Johnny?
Yeah, but the form has to play a massive part there. To be fair, like, Conor Murray was probably the best of the lot to be chosen as captain, I suppose. Like that, we don't know what's going on in camp. Everyone speaks about him being such a positive leader and a great talker, but Ali Price I thought was outstanding last week, and I think he really put himself into a test jersey from the first minute he was on till when Murray came on. I think it was the 60th or 56th or 7th minute he came on. But yeah, it's a shock. I suppose if I was him, I'd be a little bit annoyed. You're being announced as tour captain. You're guaranteeing yourself as a test shirt, and then Alan Wynne-Jones comes back. The other guy has a solid shift, and you're on the bench. So, but look, he's a professional athlete. He's gonna get these days. I'm sure when he comes in, he'll make his marker, and he'll definitely get a good 25 minutes, I suppose.
Chris, what do you think of Tom Curry and Hamish Watson? Tom obviously starting, Hamish on the bench.
Yeah, well,
could have been an either or, really.
Yeah, I think we had that chat last week that Curry absolutely from the A game had played himself into the starting slot. It was interesting that they put Watson on the bench, which I'm not quite sure where that fits into my strategy when I'm making changes. Basically, you only have the option of going like for like. So you're basically telling Curry that he's coming off. Whereas if you had Byrne covering the back row and played Henderson, it just gives you so many more options if there is an injury. But I suppose I'm not quite sure where he's coming from, because it just is narrowing your options so much if there is an injury, and you could end up with, and I'm not saying it'd be a bad thing, but you could end up with Watson and Curry on the bench on the pitch at the same time. That's 2 out sevens. I don't know, maybe that's what he wants. Maybe that's the last half hour he's looking to really, really speed the game up, and that might be something that he does. But just given the sheer physicality that they're going to face on Saturday, you kind of just be a little bit worried that we don't have enough physical presence. either on the bench or starting, to be fair, without Mako, without Jamie George, without Henderson. You know, just while we don't want to take them on with physical, you know, there's no point in us going to war with them. On the physical stakes, we absolutely need to be able to compete with them, and we need to be able to get in behind them so that the physicality doesn't become a massive part of what they do. So, you know, it is a strange one, but yeah, as I say, we wait and see, and that's what makes it so intriguing.
Yeah, and just looking at the back three, because kicking could be a big factor in this game as well, if you want to go over them and around them as opposed to through them. Like you touched on it earlier, Duan van der Merwe getting called in on the left wing as well was a bit of a strange one. What bit of a shock as well, I suppose, raised a couple of eyebrows.
Yeah, definitely. If you look at South Africa over the last probably 18 months, they have a very, very precise and detailed kicking game. And if you watch the A game last or 2 weeks ago, the South African A game, how South Africa are pressing up on the kick chase. So 15 seconds into the game, Faf de Klerk does a box kick. Everyone is pushing towards. I think it was Josh Adams at the time. That there's 3 South African guys coming in, and they're watching that threat because Colby Cheslin was coming down that wing, but they weren't watching Eden Esteban coming in from the side and absolutely, or it was Liam Williams actually ending Liam Williams within 15 seconds and getting a turnover and a penalty. Like, so their kicking game is, their execution is perfect every time. They really have a solid kicking game, and if we're watching Colby Cheslin and everyone is worried about him, you're going to get smashed. Like, you have to tighten up on that an awful lot more than what they did, especially in the A game.
Yeah. That's a good point, Chris.
Yeah, which they may be one of the reasons they went for Van der Merwe, in that he just has a bit more physical presence, expecting the ball to come down that channel, and that he have the physicality to be able to withstand it. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Fair point.
Eden Esteban hitting any man now is
not pleasant.
He's going to win out there.
Yeah. You're not gonna wish that on anybody.
I don't think we've any complaints of Stuart Hogg at fullback.
Yeah, no. I mean, obviously Williams would have played there in South Africa 4 years, or in New Zealand 4 years ago, and was really, really good. Possibly hasn't had the best run so far of games in South Africa, and he was kind of in and out. He was injured in and out of the Welsh side during the campaign, so. Probably hasn't done enough, whereas Hogg's had an excellent season. Although he's been quiet enough on the tour so far, you're kind of just waiting for him to come to life. And I wonder, does he suffer a little bit in not having Finn Russell on the pitch? Because the two of them, so many of the Scottish players are built around the two of them, and they kind of feed off one another. And not having Russell there, I wonder, does it just handicap Hogg a little bit? But yeah, look, Saturday will tell a tale. But he's a great competitor, and he's a big leader as well. So hopefully he has a big game at the weekend.
His aerial game is very good too, to be fair. Like, so you're going up against one of the best kicking teams in the world. You want your best back three defensive against an aerial game. Like, so he offers a lot. I agree with Chris. We definitely haven't seen the best of Stuart Hogg on this tour, and maybe that point that Chris made about Finn Russell not being there might steady him a little bit. But hopefully it goes well. He's tried and tested. I think he's one of the best fullbacks in the world. This is my opinion on it now, but hopefully it goes well for him, and he's works well with Van der Merwe, and Anthony Watson was also very good in the air, to be fair.
Yeah, and he had a very good game the last day as well. I thought he kind of was starting to come into his own as well, so it's good to see him, because he hadn't had a lot of game time up to that. I think he was one of the COVID lads who was locked up
in that group,
one stage, so he's hopefully coming in fresh and ready to do well, and he did. As I say, he was one of the guys who certainly stood out in New Zealand as well 4 years ago.
Yeah, so, an exceptional player.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, and I'm not sure England use him to the best of his ability. So I'm hoping that Warren gets a bit more out of him.
Yeah. So we're not going to be able to beat them going toe to toe with them. Their aerial game is good. Their back three is fantastic. we need to get a bit creative if we're going to beat the Boks. But looking across that team sheet, and you just touched on it there as well with combinations, there's not an awful lot of familiar combinations across that pitch per se with the Lions team. Obviously, he has a plan. There's some plan there that we're not, and we'll give him, as Chris says, we'll give Warren the benefit of the doubt until full time on Saturday. How are we going to get around the Boks?
That's the $1 million question.
I'm trying to work it out. It's a bit of a tough one.
I think the physicality has to be first and foremost. I know you said you don't want to go toe to toe with them, but you can't let them bully you either, because they're going to. Like you see that in the South Africa A game. So if the first 40 is a little bit more aggressive, and if the Lions get up off the line a bit more and come forward and actually hit them in twos rather than trying to meet them one-on-one, because one-on-one you're not going to win them collisions with the Boks. So you have to get up and just double hit each time you're ball carrying and try to wear them down defensively so they don't get to exploit that gap. And you want to make the ball an awful lot more slower for Faf de Klerk, because he's one of the best nines in the world, obviously himself and Anton Dupont, probably top 2 nines in the world at the minute. You're giving him fast ball, he is just going to rip your defence to shreds. So we want to be, I personally think physicality and pressing off the defensive line a little bit harder than what they done in the A game. And I think if they stick with them for the first 40, it can be a competitive game. If they lose the physical aspect, it's going to be a line, or it's going to be South Africa winning. So
yeah, no, you'd have to say, well, there's no question the whole physicality piece is massive. I think one of the probably shining lights at the back of this is that because we got the upper hand on the scrum in the A game, that's massive for the South Africans, just from a purely mental point of view. There's only 6, 7, 8, 9 scrums in a match now, but if we could get the edge in a couple of those scrums early on, it just sets such a massive tone for the whole game, and it will absolutely damage the South African ego. Whereas if the reverse happens, we're goosed, or we're just bollocks. I'm not sure how we're going to exist on the game. But if we could get a bit of forward ball off scrum, the lineouts are creative and imaginative, and I'm sure Gregor and stuff has a load of plays up his sleeve that he's been waiting to produce. That we do stand a chance, but absolutely, if we cave at scrum time, we're in big trouble. But as you say, absolutely at Ruck and Mall as well, we need to be really physical when we get there. They load the breakdown even in the couple of games they played, particularly in that A game. And in the first half, they really loaded the rucks. They're putting 3 and 4 guys into every ruck, whereas we're putting in 1s and 2s, and just the physicality, and they were blowing us off. The Lions were being blowed off their ball. So it was, obviously need to match that and fix that. And if we can do that, well then, if we get parity at the breakdown and a bit of an edge at scrum time, we're absolutely in the game, because there's creativity there. There's some lovely footballers there. So hopefully that, but that absolutely, those two are imperative to us having any chance to survive.
Yeah. And if you watch their counter-rucking game as well, which I found very interesting, I rewatched the A game there yesterday. The first man in is actually going after the ball for 2 seconds, but then attacking the space. So he's leaving the next man to get an easier poach. They're winning an awful lot of penalties at the breakdown from that, because if Chris will know as well from this, if you're a poach, you see someone poaching at your ball, you're loading up then to hit him. So you're not watching him at all, so you're getting yourself ready for a big contact. If he steps off the ball, then it comes forward at you. It's kind of a dogfight, so it's leaving it free for the guy behind. And what's interesting again as well is their line-out attack. They will give you the front all day long. They will give you the front. They'll load the back. So then, why they load the back is your attack then has to be narrow to the line-out. You won't get too wide because their line speed is too good. So they have probably potentially 4 forwards around the breakdown quickly to get in and load that ruck. So we just have to be little bit more variation in our lineouts and our set piece. And definitely, if we get that edge on the scrum, we get go forward ball off the scrum. It's a psychological battle rather than a physical battle. Then, so there's lots of things. If any coach has the blueprint to beat the Boks, you'd be worth $1 million at the minute. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, there is one. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
There is another little element as well, is probably the box rustiness, if that's going to be a factor. I don't know if it is, but they haven't had an awful lot of international rugby of late. You know, they've had the COVID shutdowns and players missing, and you know, that sort of interruption as well. Is there a chance that might play into our hands a bit?
I wouldn't be backing on that, because you looked at their South African A squad came out and they bullied the Lions for 40 minutes, and they've had very little rugby. So that was their first game. So if they're bullying you and their first hit out, I definitely wouldn't be worried about them in the second hit out. I'd say they'd be well tuned. Look, it might come into part maybe 45, 50 minutes. They might get a little tired like they did in the A game. But look, I wouldn't be banking on their rustiness being a part now of us winning the game.
Yeah, look, I mean, I actually think it could be a factor, but then you could say the same about the Lions. You know, they haven't really had a proper test. They're a side that's thrown together. So it's kind of both sides are coming at it from the same perspective in that regard. But the point being that the Lions have obviously, as a squad, have played a lot more rugby. Sorry, not as a squad, but as a group of individuals, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Played a lot more rugby in the last year. So, you know, they would be more rugby hardened, more game hardened than the South Africans. And, you know, that other South African, call it what you want, side that played the Bulls, they got beaten. So there's quite a number of lads who played in that game who played themselves out of the test team for tomorrow. So it's, you know, I think it could be a factor, Stephen, in that, you know, they have played very little rugby. And yes, while obviously they're the world champions at the moment, I do think there is a possibility that could come into play. And I wonder, is that where Warren's coming from, given the way he's particularly has picked his bench? So look, it'll be really interesting to see, you know, but I mean, having Farrell and Murray on the bench for under normal circumstances, you would go, why would you do that? Two of them are really, really structured, disciplined, talented footballers. Whereas normally off your bench, you're bringing the guy who's going to do something different or produce a little bit of magic or something. Sorry?
A Marcus Smith maybe or something.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether it's Marcus Smith, given that we've seen so little of him, but it's a rather unusual tactic to take when selecting your bench. So, but clearly there's method in the madness, and he clearly has a plan, and, you know, so please God it works.
What do you reckon, Johnny?
Yeah, look, I don't personally think that rustiness will come into it, but I do think Warren Gatland and the coaching staff have something lined up. I really do. I don't think we've seen all their cards yet. I think he's holding cards close to his chest, and I think this Saturday they could come out and just a completely different game plan. You know, like I'm excited about the team. Cowan Dickey I think he's really, really good. I personally had went with Ken Owens at starting hooker, but he played really well last week. I think the team is exciting, but I really do think they're reserving it and they're holding the cards close to the chest. So hopefully 7 o'clock Saturday we'll be sitting there saying, yeah, Warren Gatland is still proving us wrong 20 years later.
Yeah, no, hard to disagree with that. Yeah, but so you didn't tell me, Johnny, what the score was going to be.
Yeah, what's your prediction, Johnny?
What's the predictions? Jeez, lad, you're putting me on the spot here. I'm going to sound really terrible. I actually think the Boks are going to win by about, I personally think about 7 to 10 the Boks will win by.
Okay,
well, just for a bit of balance then, I'm going to go 19-16 to the Lions.
19-16.
All right, close enough. Yeah, I'd probably be
and the other thing as well is somebody, one of the Boks will get sent off, which will open the game for us. Because I can't
right out there.
Yeah, I can't believe that, given the fact they've been locked up and they'll be so fucking wired to the moon, that somebody will just look to take the head off somebody at some stage, and they'll be in the stand for the rest of the game, and that'll change the whole dynamic of the game. So you heard it here first.
Like TJ Sander when he returned home to South Africa a couple of years ago. Get out and take the head off somebody and get off after about 6 minutes.
There you go. Yeah. So
you've heard it here, folks.
Heard it here first.
the lad being sent off. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, exactly. Get your bets on now. Yeah, that's our preview. So the match is, if you're listening to the podcast before the match, it's 5 o'clock Irish time. It's on Sky Sports on Saturday, and it's in Cape Town as well. So we're looking forward to that one. Going to change subject now. We're going to have a chat about Leinster. The Heineken Champions Cup draw was made during the week. It always happens during the summer, and around the Lions tour, it sort of gets buried down underneath the bottom of the rugby news, but we have to have a chat about it nonetheless. So this year, Leinster once again will face Montpellier, and they have Bath in their group as well. Munster being drawn with Wasps and Cast. Ulster will play Claremont and Northampton, and Connacht will play Leicester, Tigers and Stads. What happens is the 4 provinces will face their pool opponents at home and away. That all kicks off in December. And then the clubs have been divided into 2 pools of 12, Pool A and B. So the 8 highest ranked clubs from each pool will qualify for the knockout stages. So that's 16. So that's the last 16, obviously. And there'll be 2-legged rounds in that round of 16 as well, before 1-legged quarterfinals, semi-finals, and the final, which is in Marseille on the 28th of May. So the format has changed a bit this year. Johnny, what do you reckon the format of it this year? 2 teams in your group, home and away, done.
Yeah, it's a good layout. I think
Yeah.
it's a good layout, especially after the year we're having. It's a little bit later of a start, and with the lines going on at the minute, it gives clubs a little bit better of a chance for progressing in the tournament. But look, it is what it is. You can really pick who's going to win what games off our provinces anyway. Bar the Ulster group, that's probably the most interesting group, with Claremont and Northampton. And Connacht, you never know what Leicester, Chris we were speaking about earlier, you never know what Leicester you're going to get. So Connacht could potentially come through. They've also got Stad as well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. What's also really good is, if you look at our provinces, we don't actually have too many big lads involved with the Lions as such. Like Leinster still have Johnny Sexton, Keane Healy, Andrew Porter, all them lads. Like, you know, Munster probably the worst off, with Conor Murray and Tyke Byrne gone with the Lions, so they'll want probably a bit of a break. But yeah, look at it. I think it's good. I think it's great that we're still getting to play rugby, so that's the main thing.
Absolutely. Johnny, you're under time pressure. You're to go and teach actual rugby to
a bunch of kids. I'm actually getting a phone call now. Where am I?
The rising stars of the next generation.
Yeah, the future stars. Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll let you go there, Johnny, if you want. Myself and Chris will finish out the Heineken Cup. You're knocked out now at this stage, so we
Thanks very much.
Thanks for that. That's Johnny Tobin there. Talk to you soon. That's Johnny Tobin there. Johnny disappears, and myself and Chris. So yeah, Chris, the format puts a bit of pressure on. You know, you have 2 teams in your group, home and away. So you really need to get stuck in early, get the results, and get into the last 16.
Yeah, so the 2 8s, I'm not 100% sure what way it happens. So, but you break into 2 groups of 12, is that right?
So the way the format is it's 2 groups. Yes, 2 pools of 12. Yeah, Pool A and Pool B. So that's 24 teams. So the top 8 from each go into the last 16, and the last 16 play whoever they get in the draw, home and away. So it's a 2-legged system, sort of like the Champions League.
Yeah, so you're playing 4 games in your group.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I suppose there is good chance then that a lot of teams could finish on the same number of points. So you're down to then points differential then to whether you qualify or not. Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting, but I'm not 100% sure why they changed it from what the old format was. But I guess the last 16 piece with 2 legs, it's a bit more like the European Cup was, and from a soccer perspective, that you know, you have a home and away leg. So look, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. It's certainly worth trying to change it up a little bit. So, but certainly I think Leinster would be happy enough with their draw. I don't think they'd all, to be quite honest, happy enough with their draws, given that Connacht are in it now as well. They certainly have a fighting chance against Leicester, although they have improved a little bit in the last few months of the back end of the season. But and then Stad, obviously you're taking your chance. But you know, if you had them up in Galway on a wet and windy night in December, you'd fancy your chances. So yeah, no, Connacht to be happy enough, I'd say, with their draw too. So yeah, look, overall, I think the draw is interesting, and it'll just be interesting to see a new format and how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. I just have to look into how the scoring is going to work in the last 16. So there's away goals and all that in the soccer.
Yeah.
How does it work in the rugby?
I
Are
don't
you
know
looking at the clock?
tries or not. That would be interesting.
Yeah, that's it. I have to read into that and how that's broken down. Could it be a stage that you're away playing for Leinster and you know you need to get a penalty or win by 3 points or something to turn the differential? Or it's an interesting one. All to be revealed, I suppose. But yeah, it's a different format. So 2 games home and away, and then you have 2 games if you make it through to the last 16, and then you have normal quarterfinal, semis, and the final then as well. Leinster and Ulster are in Pool A, and Connacht and Munster are in Pool B. So that would mean, I'd imagine, the top 8 from each pool then will be in a draw, and they'll play possibly cross. One out of A, one out of B, as it goes there. Which would be interesting as well. So there's every chance Leinster and Munster, if they get out, could end up playing each other again, which would be interesting one, the last 16. And then you have a home and away tie, so the Aviva and Thomond, potentially. Yeah, no, it's
exactly. Which is all good. Yeah.
See what the story is. It seems like a million miles away at the Champions Cup at this stage, doesn't it?
It does for sure, We're early part of December. We're hoping it'll be a different world by then. And we get back to some level of normality.
Absolutely. Chris, just a small bit of news coming through Leinster. They're losing bits and pieces of their staff. Their assistant coach, defence coach Hugh Hogan, has joined the Scarlets. Just announced there in the last couple of days. He was a contact skills coach for Leinster since 2017. He's St Mary's College man. I think he captained their club to an AIL title back, about 10 years ago, give or take. And he coached with the IRFU Sevens and that sort of stuff as well. But there's 2 decent staff in the last couple of weeks leaving Leinster. I wouldn't say there's much going on there, but you'd like to be holding on to your fellas.
Yeah, look, I mean, they have a huge network of, very, very high standard of coaches and stuff. So I think it's good for everyone, to be honest, if guys go away and possibly with a view to coming back. But there's only so much room, and it's a bit like the school set up in Leinster anyway, that there's just so many good players coming through. It's a bit the same with young coaches and stuff coming through. So if they got an opportunity to go and expand their skill base and whatever, I think it's fantastic for the Irish game long term. So yeah, look, I'd encourage anybody, player or coach, to go away if the opportunity came. So yeah, look, I think it's only good.
That's it. Chris, we'll wrap up the podcast there. Interesting times. With fingers crossed now the Lions can do something, or we see some magic from the team selection from Warren Gatland. Let him prove us wrong again. He's done it so many times. He's the guy we love to hit.
Well, sure, look, we'll see what happens anyway, and fingers crossed, as you say, we get the job done, and we have a 1916 Lions win.
Absolutely.
You heard it here first, folks.
And a South African sent off.
There you go.
From Chris Pim. Chris, thanks a million. And of course, Johnny Tobin was on the podcast with us as well. He's gone out to teach actual rugby this morning when the podcast has been recorded. So good wishes to Johnny, and I hope he put the sun cream on after last week. It's been one of those weeks. He's gone very brown looking. Chris, thanks a million, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Pleasure. Thanks, Stephen.